Hey everyone, and welcome to Lecture 1 of Section 9. So in this section, as I said, we're going to be going over a lot of text functions. So this first lecture is all about combining text. It's taking words and numbers and basically just putting them together as you would if you combined Ev and Anne and made Evan, right? It's just basically putting letters together or putting numbers together. And then I'm going to run into upper, lower, and proper, which are functions that allow you to set the casing for specific text. So let's get right into it. First is concatenate. So there are three different types of ways to combine text. There's concatenate, there's concat, and there's an ampersand sign. So all concatenate does is joins two or more text strings into one string. So it takes two things and makes them one. Simple as that. It's going to allow you to take contents of cells and put them together. So let's say you're making a URL and you have the same first part of the URL and then the rest of the URL is going to be different, and you have a list of different endings to the URLs that you want to make a massive list out of. Concatenate is going to help you there. So it takes your word and it adds another word or range and a number, another word, number, or range. So the great thing about concatenate is this is the one that you can do words, numbers, or ranges with. You can concatenate all of these things. You're not just stuck to a single cell, a single word. You can do entire ranges as well. Concat and the ampersand sign are a little more limited in their use. They're also used to join two or more text strings into one string, but concat actually only allows you to join two things, whereas the ampersand allows you to join many, but you can't join ranges. So it's just word or number 1, word or number 2, to word or number n. Does that make sense? So you have concatenate, which is kind of the jack of all trades, and then you have concat and the ampersand, which are a little more limited in their usage. We're then going to go over a little bit in the spreadsheet, upper, lower, and proper. So upper just turns everything to uppercase, as you would expect. Think about it as caps lock. It just takes whatever you have in that cell and capitalizes everything. Lower does the exact opposite. It takes all the things in your cell and it makes them all lowercase. So you have uppercase, lowercase. Proper, however, is my favorite because it makes everything look nice and neat. So for titling, it's going to capitalize the first letter of every word that you have in a cell. So if you have Harry Potter, weird like this, and your letters are all wonky, you get Harry Potter nice and neat. So these are very useful. You probably are not thinking of many use cases right now. When I first learned these, I thought, oh, this is really cool. I can do this nice thing. But when push comes to shove and you actually need to do mass capitalization or, take a paragraph and make it all look nice, or a title and make it all look nice without having to type, I'm a slow typist, proper is very handy as well. So let's get into the spreadsheet. All right, so if you'll navigate over to your spreadsheet, you're going to go to the Lecture 1 Concatenate Upper and Lower Proper tab, and then you're going to have some dummy data over here. Don't worry about that. I was going to use that for something else. I'm not actually sure if you guys even have it in your spreadsheet. If so, ignore it for now. What we're going to concentrate on is this middle section that says text 1, text 2, and it has all these different examples. So the first one we're going to look at is text 1 and text 2 with concatenation. So remember, I gave you three choices of how to concatenate. The reason I limited it to two different boxes here, two different cells, is because I want to try concat first. So if we try concat, we have value 1 and value 2. And you can do either a text and input it yourself, like random text here, and make it like, I love their hello goodbye example, but you can do that. Or you can do, cells. So we have text 1, comma, text 2. And we have I love pancakes. Wonderful. So it works really well. Now, an issue that you'll run into is when you use concat, you will not be able to do 3. So let's say we do a range. It's going to say error, wrong number of arguments. So even if I add another argument here and just put hello, it's still giving me a value error. An array value cannot be found. So you can't use ranges in this setup. Concat, again, does not allow you to use ranges. So if we use the ampersand now, we have equals, right? I love pan and cakes. Ooh. And it gives you I love pancakes. Wonderful. So actually, let's go through this one at a time. We have concat, I2 and J2. Then we have ampersand. So I'm going to do product and 15. Ooh. And we get product 15. So the reason that I wanted to not have a space in here is concat can actually take 3 arguments instead of 2. So if I put another ampersand here and add a space, I get product 15. Lastly, we have concatenate. And I'm not going to take a ton of time on these because they're really not super complicated, but I can do an array there, right? I can do a little range, or I can do them individually, right? Very, very useful. So concatenate is going to be your number 1. If I had to rank them, I would say concatenate number 1, ampersand number 2, concat number 3. Concat is really not going to get much use ever. Just use concatenate. I think they deprecated, they kept it in the system, but it's very useless, so don't even worry about it. I just am teaching it because I always had the question, what the heck is it, and why am I not using that versus the others? So again, concatenate number 1, ampersand number 2, concat number 3. So let's try upper now. So as you know, you just type in equals with your function, and let's just put it in there. And J8 and C, look at that, it capitalizes everything. And if I copy this down, it capitalizes it all. Lower, same thing. Again, not taking a ton of time to explain this because it's pretty straightforward, but you have upper and lower, and then you have proper, which has the same input and the same type of usage as upper and lower. So if we go to the bottom here now, we have text 1, text 2, and using combos. So I want you guys to try and use some combinations to put these together to get an expected outcome like the ones I've listed here. So if we have my name is Evan, right? Feel free to pause and try this on your own if you haven't already. But if I have my name is Evan, I'm going to do equals upper, right? Because I know it's going to be uppercase. And then the second thing I'm going to do is concatenate it. So concatenate my name is and Evan, but I need a space. So I just checked and it looked like I needed a space. So I put a space in there and I have my name is Evan. Excellent. Then I have product 15 and I want to do the same thing, but I want to use lower this time. So I have lower, concatenate, product and 15. I need a space again. Glad I double checked. And I get product 15. And lastly, I want to put these 2 cells together and make them proper. So I type in proper, concatenate, Evan and Ramsey. And again, I need a space. So we have these combos all used together. This was a quick lecture. I just really wanted to get you the basics here. These are very useful functions, but they're also very use case specific. You're not going to be using them all the time, but for quick things where you need to change text or you need to capitalize something and make a title look nice, it can be very handy. In the next lecture, we're going to be going over left, right, len, and find, which are a little trickier in terms of their formula. And then I'm going to synthesize all of that together and teach you how to pull first and last names when you have both the first and last names in the same cell. So I'm going to teach you a pretty cool trick next one. Great job on this lecture. I'll see you in lecture 2. All right, welcome to lecture 2. So we're going to go over left and right, len, find, and search. So these are all text-related functions. They can be used on numbers as well, but predominantly they are going to be used for text. So if you think about a word, let's say you want to take some characters, some letters from that word, or let's say you have a URL and the person's name is at the front of every URL. It's like your work email and their name is before the @ symbol. So if you want to get just the name, everything before the @ symbol, I'm going to teach you a really handy function to do that, but you're going to need to use left and right first. So if you think about left, if you have a word like Evan, my name, and you start at the leftmost letter, which in this case would be E, you're then going to specify the number of characters that you want from that word, from Evan. So if I have left Evan 2, it's going to give me EV. If I have left dumpling 4, it's going to give me dump. So again, left is just starting at that leftmost character. You specify the number of characters that you want, and then it pulls that and returns it for you. Right does the exact same thing. However, you start from the last character instead of the first character, the rightmost character instead of the leftmost. And you're again going to specify the number of characters that you want, counting from the right, and it's going to return that. So if I do right, Evan 2, it's going to give me N. And if I do equals right, dumpling 4, it's going to give me ling. So you can see left and right, they're complementary functions, but they start at the opposite sides of the word and meet in the middle. Cool. So the next one we're going to go over is len. And len is just short for length. It counts the number of characters or numbers, like characters of that number, in a cell or string. So if I have Jiminy Cricket, spelled incorrectly of course, I do equals len, Jiminy Cricket, and it's going to give me 14. And if you count every single thing, including spaces, it's going to be 14. If I do equals len of A2, it's going to be some number. It's just going to return a number. What I want to drive home here is len will always return a number and a value and not a label. And then if I do len of 42, on that note, it's going to give me 2 because 42 only has 2 characters, a 4 and a 2. All right, the next two that I'm going to go over are find and search. So what do these two functions do? Well, just like left and right, they have very similar parallel functions. Find and search both find the position of a string or a substring in a string. So it's going to find the number that the character is in a group of text. So let's say you have Evan in the sentence Evan is awesome, and you want to know where Evan is in Evan is awesome. Well, by looking at it, I already know Evan is the first word and it starts as the first substring, right? The first character in that sentence. So Evan, find Evan, Evan is awesome would give me 1. But if I do find world in hello world with a capitalized W, find is case sensitive. So it's going to say, I don't know where world is. It doesn't exist. So the way to think about it is like, you know when you control find something to see if it's in an article or to see if you can find somebody's name or your name in a specific thing? Find and search are going to allow you to do that very quickly. So I do equals find world hello world. It's not going to return anything because it's case sensitive. It has to match exactly. Search, however, is case insensitive, but it does the exact same thing. So we have equals search, Evan. Evan is awesome. It's going to give me 1. And search hello world with world lowercase is 7. So it tells me, let's count that out. So we have HELLO space, 7th character is world. So, not useful right now. The only time this would be useful for you is if you're trying to find in a massive thing of text if a specific name exists in a list. But I'm going to show you a cool formula that's going to combine a lot of these different aspects and give you a first and last name if you have them in the same cell. Also, side note, search is way better than find. So if we hop over to the spreadsheet, we have some examples on the left of left, right, len, and find or search, and then we have a little activity. So let's start with the examples. Well, if I go over here and I see using left, give me hello. I want hello from my name is John. So I want hello from this sentence. Hello, my name is John. Well, I know hello is 5 letters. So I'm going to do equals left. A is my string, A2, and my number of characters is going to be 5. If I did 4, it would give me hell. If I do 1, it'll give me H, so it's 5 for hello. Then, for 2018, in a 10-10-2018, I do equals left and 4. Right is the same thing. You can try this on your own, but it's equals right. And I'm trying to get John. It's 5 again. So same thing, but it's 5. And then expected outcome, if I'm trying to get a 10, is equals right. It's giving me too many. I just want 2. Wonderful. So I have hello, 2018, John, and 10. Sorry, John and 10. So next is length. Again, these are very simple formulas when used at the most basic level. So if you have len, it's just going to give you the length. So if I do len of this cell of hello, John, my name is John, it's 28 characters long. And if I do len of A11, it's going to give me 10 because it's 10 characters long. Super boring, but useful. All right, last one, we have find or search. So let's do find for the first example, and I'm searching for John, uppercase John. Keep that in mind because find is case sensitive. And I'm trying to find it in A14, and I'm starting at 1. And look at that, I get 24. The expected outcome was 24. Great job. And if I do search now, for 10 dash, my text to search is here, and I'm going to start at 1, and I get 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it's always the beginning letter of whatever term you're searching for. Cool. So now on to synthesis. So all of these little lessons was to teach you a very, very important left and right formula for parsing names. And you might look this up if you were ever trying to pull like a last name from a list of names. So if over here I have, this massive list of names on the left here, and if I just wanted the first name like Xiaomara or Maya, Noel for first name, and Bradford, Klein, Vega for last name, it would take me a really long time to type those all out and go in and do like Bradford, Klein. This could take me a really long time. So they've developed a formula, and by they I mean some spreadsheet experts a long time ago developed a formula to pull those specific things from a cell. There's now a better function that Google has created to do that, which I'm teaching in the next section, the next lecture. But for now, let's learn this because it's a pretty cool thing and it's fairly advanced. So let's just do this. It's not going to make any sense if I explain it, unless I actually show you an example. I have Shamara Bradford, and my activity here is find the first and last names of people. So I have equals left. I'm going to use left for first name and right for last name. And we're going to use the space as the dividing factor. We're going to find the space using search. Confusing, I know. But we're going to find the space using search, and based on that location, we're going to take everything before that space for the first name. So I do left of this string, then I do search for a space in this string, starting at 1, and that's it. And we get Shamara. But what I'm going to do to even make this better is add proper to the front. So we have proper of the first name. For last name, let me just run through what's happening here. So the left formula takes the character that I specify, the number of characters that I specify from a cell that I specify. So I'm looking at Shamara Bradford. What I'm doing then is using search to find the location of the space. And the space is where the first name is always going to end. So I search for the space in that, and it's going to give me the location of the space. And then I'm specifying the number of characters up to that space, right? So I'm taking left of this cell for the number of characters up to the space. Cool? Cool. All right, so for the last name, I'm going to use my right formula. I'm using the same cell. And for the number of characters, I want to take the length of this entire string. Okay, and I'm going to explain why in a second. And I'm going to subtract where that space is in this. And it's going to give me the last name. Now let me explain what's happening in this one. And I'll add proper to the front again. So in this last name, we're using the right formula. And again, the right starts from the right side. So it's starting from Bradford, so this D. And then it's asking me to specify the number of characters that I want. So first, I'm counting up the total number of characters in Shamara Bradford. And then I'm subtracting from that where the space is. So remember how in Shamara, I'm just using search to find the length of Shamara. Well, the Bradford formula, interestingly, is subtracting everything that comes before the first name, so before that space, including the space. So, sorry, very complicated to explain, but essentially what this formula is doing is it's taking the right of that cell, starting at D, I'm taking the length of the entire thing, and then subtracting everything, including the space and before. So I'm subtracting in Maya, it would be the space and before Maya, the space and before Noel, to get that last name. But let's go ahead and copy it down and see if we succeeded. And look at that, you have all the first and last names. And this will work for anything. So I'm going to go over here, and I'm going to ask you guys to do the same thing for this list over here. For country or area, I want you to get the country separate and the region separate. And you can see why this would be useful, because this could help you make charts and graphs better. A chart and graph won't process data this well. but it can count up the number of ages and count up the number of different countries. So you can do some sort of, analysis on this. So you need to separate out the country from region. And in the next lecture, I'll start by going over this, and then I'll move on from there. Great job today. I know these were kind of complicated, but I'll see you in the next one. All right, Squadron, welcome back to Lecture 3, the final lecture. All right, Squadron, welcome back to Lecture 3 of Section 9. So in this lecture, we're going to be going over join, split, and transpose. So these are text functions that essentially deprecate a lot of the ones we just learned. But the reason I taught you them sequentially is because now you're going to understand them much more solidly right off the bat. So what do join and split do? Join concatenates elements of an array based on a specified delimiter. It's pretty fancy jargon to say, put stuff together and separates them with whatever character you want. So remember with concatenate, we had to specify and then add the space in manually, and it was kind of a pain in the butt. So what join does is it allows you to highlight an array, or like multiple cells, like a range, and join them together with a specific delimiter. So like a comma, a space, a dash, whatever you want to do. We'll get into the spreadsheet and I'll show you a specific example, but it makes it so you don't really have to use concatenate that much if you don't want to. The next is split. So split does the exact opposite of join, as you might have guessed, and it divides the text around specified characters or strings. It puts each fragment into a separate cell in a row. Splits things up based on the characters you specify. So let's say I have a sentence, and I want to split every word up into its own cell. Well, I can use split, use the space as my delimiter. It'll split it across like 4 cells if it's a 4-word sentence. The next is transpose. So it's just changing the orientation. It changes ordering from vertical to horizontal. So it takes your cells, and instead of going from, column A, row 1 to 5, now it's row 1, column A, B, C, D, E. Kind of confusing still, but when we get in the spreadsheet, it'll make sense. So let's hop on over. Once you're in here, you'll notice that I have a lot of different examples. The reason I have a lot of examples is because I love these functions. They're very useful. So if I go to use the join function and put the first and last names together, remember how annoying it was to concatenate everything? I could do concatenate and, highlight that array, but then I have to go back in. I have to, change this, add a space, and it's a whole thing. Didn't take me that much time. But if I do join and specify a space, then I just highlight this range and it joins it all together. Boom. Split, as I said, does the opposite. So I do equals split, I choose my text, and the delimiter is just the space, right? You can divide text around each character, but let's not worry about that for now, and just use split by the space, and it splits it out. Remember the first and last name exercise where I had to do like, what was it, equals left, string, search, space, and I got Joan. This does it super fast, and it gets both of them in the cell that we want them in. Now transpose, again, very easy to use. You just type in equals transpose, you highlight the range you want to flip, and all of a sudden it goes from vertical to horizontal. Instead of rows, now it's in columns. And we have this last thing where we're going to transpose again. We're almost done. That's why I made it this. And we're going to transpose horizontal to vertical. Boom. All right. So let's get into some examples that you guys can try. So the first thing I want you to do is use the join function to make this sentence. Give it a shot. All right, so you should have already given it a shot, but here we go. We're going to do join. Our delimiter is going to be a space, and we're going to highlight the range, and it's going to say the quick brown fox jumped over the lazy dog. All right, now split and transpose example 2. So this, I want you to use split and transpose to basically take that sentence we just made up here, and you're going to separate them into their own cells and make them go from horizontal to vertical. And I'll show you why. So if I use split on this sentence, and I split by the spaces, so you can see it put it into a bunch of different cells. So let's delete that. Then we have to transpose it. So to get it to go down instead of sideways, we go equals split, right? And we're going to split this cell based on the space. But then we're going to throw a transpose in front of it. And what this is going to do is it's going to take this and create a new range out of it. So this new range is now going to be spanning across all of these columns. But if I put transpose in, it's taking all of those newly created column words and transposing them to be vertical. Excellent. So I blazed through these examples, but you can see the power that exists in these formulas. And in our next lecture, we're going to do another activity that includes these, which is why I'm not taking a ton of time going through this. But these are super handy functions that are useful. So never forget the join and never forget the split function. Instead of ever having to use the left and right trick again, you can just use these and they'll work way better. So great job today, everyone. I'll see you in the next lecture where we're going to be learning about trim. All right, everyone, welcome to lecture 4. So this is going to be a really quick explanation. I don't even have slides for this lecture, but the main function I want to concentrate on in this lecture is trim. So trim, if we go to our spreadsheet, it just gets rid of trailing and leading spaces. So if you ever think about, if you have a CSV file or whatever it is, and it adds extra spaces in front like this, where you have, example and it's got a bunch of spaces, or, it's got just one extra space in front of it, or maybe it has some spaces at the end that you didn't know about, but you want to make sure that it all fits together and there are no leading or trailing spaces, you use trim. So simple, all you do is type in trim, and you put in text, so in this case it's example, and it gives you the trimmed result. You can see why I made no slides. It's really, really easy. Literally just typing in trim, clicking on your cell or highlighting your cell, whatever it is, and you're good to go. Excellent. So now for the fun part. I want to introduce this activity, right? And then we're going to give you a shot at it, and then I'm going to go over the answer. So the challenge activity is I want you to separate these animal names into their own cells, like you see here. Sand dollar, donkey, and guinea pig should look like this. And then as a bonus, you can rejoin the names in alphabetical order, right? Using a bar symbol, which is like, I don't know, it's near your backslash, right? But it's like this given or bar or whatever you want to call it on either side of the words, right? So like donkey, bar, guinea pig, bar, sand dollar. And you notice it's DGS, all in alphabetical order. So give this a shot. And if you need a hint, you're going to want to use sort to get it to be alphabetical. Cool? A lot of different various techniques to use here. It's a pretty tough challenge. It actually took me a little bit to figure out, but it's a fun one once you get to the end. And for those of you who are really looking for a challenge, it'll really test you. But the initial challenge is just get these in their own cells without the spaces, trailing spaces, and without the commas. Cool? All right. Did you get it? All right, so let's give it a shot. So I'm going to start by splitting out my cells by the commas, right? That's the first step. The second step is I need to add a trim in here. And the trim is going to go inside the split because I basically, if there are any leading or trailing spaces, which you can see there are by this arc here, these random leading and trailing spaces, first I'm going to trim all those spaces out, and then I'm going to split out into my cells. So I hit enter, and look at that, I've got it. And I copy it down, and now I've got all my different animals in their different cells, and it looks really nice. So now for the challenge. The challenge is just that. It's very tricky. The bonus is hard. So what we're going to do is we're going to first think about this problem, and we're going to think about it one step at a time. So I want to rejoin the names, but I want to remind you that it's all about breaking this down into multiple problems. So the first problem we have is we want to join these together, right? So simply put join, and I know that my range is going to be this, and I didn't add my delimiter in yet because I'm an idiot, but I add my delimiter. So we're going to do it one step at a time. And look at that, it's kind of weird spacing, but I have the bars, so that's good. That's great news. But I want to add spaces to either side of this to make sure that it looks nice, and now it does. Okay, so I added spaces to both sides of the bar, and now I have pigeon, rook, and whale in nice order. Cool. So these happen to be in alphabetical order, but if I copy this down, swan, otter, and hare definitely is not in alphabetical order, and armadillo, whale, and salamander is also not. So I know that there's something going wrong here. So the next thing I need to do is I need to work on this array here. So in order to alphabetize it, I need to take these and I need to put them in order. And so typically I would want to sort, right, this group and put them in alphabetical order. And it would say pigeon, rook, whale. Well, that's great, but if I copy this down, will it keep track? And the answer is no, it won't. And there's a reason for that. It's not going to sort based on horizontal because sort tends to work vertically. So now, if you're thinking, you're going to realize you need to transpose this array. So let's do it on the side here. We're going to transpose this. And if I do that, now I want to sort this group based on column 1, and it's true. Excellent. So now if I take this and I apply it to something that's out of order, it's still out of order. Well, that's not good. I think I can figure out the reason now, because if I put that in, you can see there's spaces between, there's trailing spaces and leading spaces. So of course they're all going to think they're in alphabetical order. So in order to fix that, I need to trim now. So I'm going to test. I'm going to put a trim in front of my transpose. And now it gets rid of the leading spaces, and I have pigeon, rook, whale. How cool is that? So now I need to insert all of this back in to where my array was, my range. And if I copy it down now, look at that. We got lion, vicuña, weasel, chuff, prairie dog, warthog. All of these are in alphabetical orders, D, E, F. How awesome is that? So let's go ahead and copy this all the way down. And we're all set. That's the activity. Great job, guys. I hope that makes sense. The answers are in your workbook down, so feel free to check it out if you're confused. But this is a really tricky one. You're starting to get to super advanced level. And as you're thinking about these, hopefully you understand it. But if you don't, it's not a huge deal. It's a lot of practice. This took me a lot of time to get this proficient. All right, everyone, great job in that activity, great job in this lecture, and great job in this section. We're done with text functions for now. Moving forward, we're going to be working on some date functions. Then we're going to get into a couple of really advanced functions, and then you're done with the course. So great job. We're really making headway here, and I'll see you in the next section. Hey everyone, and welcome to Lecture 1 of Section 10. So in this, we're going to be going over today and now. So, as you would expect, today returns today's date. So if you do equals today, it's going to return today's date. What kind of things can today's date be used for? Well, simply you could figure out how many days have happened since a certain event. Let's say something happened on April 12th of 2017. And your dumpling business has been suffering since then. And you want to figure out how much revenue per day has been generated since April 12th. And then you can go backwards and calculate before that date how much revenue is being generated per day. Well, to figure out per day revenue, you need to know how many days have passed. And today's date will allow you to do that. So you use equals today minus date, which we haven't learned yet, but you can actually just have the date in a different cell and do subtract that date, and you'll get 545 if it's, a few days ago. You can also calculate dates a week, a month, or 2 months out. 3 months, whatever you want, by just adding the number to today. And that'll give you whatever today is added on those days. Each integer, so each incremental 1, 2, 3, whatever, is a day. So if you do 0.25, that's a quarter of a day. And it'll be converted to hours. So today plus 7 would be a week from today. I don't know what that is when you're taking this course, but it's going to be some date. And what this becomes really useful for is you can create counters, you can create deadlines, maps in your sheet that'll be like to-do lists. Remember how we created a to-do list? Well, you can create a to-do list with an exploding deadline and say like today, where today is not equal to the deadline, right? If today equals the deadline, make it red and say overdue or whatever it is, or due today. Lastly, you can calculate how many days are left in the month. There's a lot more applications of this function, but these are some main ones. But you can do like end of month, which we'll learn in the next lecture, and take the end of month of today's date, so whatever today's date is, and then minus today. So you can see like how many days are left before I need to get this thing done. Kind of what I was talking about before with the to-do list. Now does the exact same thing, This one I'm not going to take any time explaining. It's the exact same thing, but it's just more accurate. So instead of today, it's returning today plus the hour, the minute, and the second of whatever time that is. So you can see, same exact applications. Excellent. So let's hop into the spreadsheet and go through some examples because, again, I don't want to spend a ton of time on this. So now that we're in our spreadsheet, let's go over example 1. So how do we use today? Well, it just gives you today's date, as I was saying. So you just type in today, throw a little tab in, and hit return. And it gives me my date, which today is November 2nd for me. What is the date and time? So if I use now, you're going to see it's going to give me not only the date, but it's also going to give me now the time as well. So depending on what your use case is, if you need to be extremely exact with the exact moment that you're doing something, now is very useful. But if you just need the general date of whatever today is, use today. And if you want to figure out trailing 90 days, you can do that using today or now. So if I do today minus 90, I get August 4th, 2018. So I know that 90 days ago was this. And for any business that you're running, you're going to need to know 90-day revenue, 60-day revenue, 30-day revenue, and maybe even annual revenue, so 365. So this becomes really handy. What if I want to use now? I can do that as well. And it'll give me essentially the exact same result, but it'll give me the time as well. I explained this example during the slides just really briefly, not very well I may add, but anyway, we have revenues per day since. So if I want to figure out how much money my business has made, let's say it's my dumpling business, and I want to figure out how much money my dumpling business has made since a certain date, I can do that really easily using today or now. So I'm going to use today, but we have a date of interest, which is, let's say, April 12th, 2017. And we have revenue since that date. I just put in 1.3 million, but you can put any number that you'd like. So I want to know how many days passed since that date. And in this case, I can do today, right, minus that date. The reason that it works today minus that date is because today's date is always going to be bigger than a date that came before. So you always want to take, so it comes out with a positive number. I guess you could technically take the absolute value of this minus this, but I'm not going to confuse you. So today minus the date of our interest, and we get 569. So 569 days have passed. And then I want to know revenue per day. So in order to get this, I just do equals my revenue divided by the number of days that have passed. And I get 2,302. Experiment with these two functions. They're pretty useful. It was a quick lecture, not too difficult. In the next lecture, we're going to be going over some more date functions. I'm going to try and blaze through this section because this is pretty straightforward stuff, but very useful. And if you ever need today's date with conditional formatting for a to-do list or something, now you know that it exists. Great job. I'll see you in the next one. All right, everyone, welcome back to lecture 2. So I'm going to go over day, year, month, weekday, end of month, e-date, and just date functions in general. I'm not actually going to make slides for this one. We have no slides for this lecture. So if we jump right into the spreadsheet, we have day, month, and year, weekday, and e-date examples. And then at the end, we're going to do a little activity that teaches you how to use end of month. The first thing I'm going to do is let's type in today. And for me, that's the 2nd of 2018. So what day does, as you would expect, is it just gives you the day number in a number format, in a value format of a date that I'm looking at. Month does the exact same thing, but for month, and year does the same thing, but for year. So why would I ever use these? I think that's probably a question you're all asking. Well, I already put in some answers here, but let's say that I am trying to create a budget for myself, and I'm trying to figure out when I spend $1,000 every month. What day do I spend $1,000? What day did I hit $1,000? So in this month it was the 17th, the 18th, the 24th, the 13th, the 6th in May. If I were to try and pull all of these out and do an average, I would have to go and I'd go, 17, 18, 24, and it would take a really long time. So instead, I can just hit day, copy that down, and now I have all the days. So I can figure out the average day I hit $1,000. And in this case, it would just be an average of these values. And so I can see that 17, I hit my $1,000 on the 17th on average over the last, 2 years or whatever it was. So this is excellent knowledge for me. It means that I know I need to start spending more frugally to try and get past that 17 number. So this is one area where you might need numerical values to run a calculation. All right, moving on. So we have eDate now. What does eDate do? Well, it basically just takes the month that you're looking at, and depending on how many months after you want to go, it'll give you the exact date, the same date, right? So it date a number of months before or after another date. So if I have 1/15/2018 and I just want 1 month after that, it'll give me the exact number of days added on to get to 2/15/2018. So if I'm billed on the 15th of every month, it's a really quick way to get that. Or if it's the 1st of every month, it'll give me the 1st of every month. It's a really quick way to calculate that without having to add the days on or, type it in manually. For every other month, this is where it really gets cool. I can do eDate, and I can do 2. So every other month, it'll add 2 months onto every date before it. So I have every other month now, 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11. Something cool is you can actually go backwards too. So if I were to change this to, if I were to change this to -2, it would give me every month preceding, right? 11, 9, 7, 5, 3. But let's keep it positive for now and do every 6 months. So you guys can try this on your own. Otherwise, here we go. So start date is my date above, and I'm going to do 6. Really, really simple stuff. All right, so this might come in handy when you're just trying to create a long list of dates, or you're trying to figure out, you're trying to do every 15th of the month. eDate is going to be great for that. Now let's blaze into weekday. So weekday gives you the day of the week, shocker, that this falls on. It starts on Sunday as 1, and then Mondays 2, Tuesdays 3, etc. But I'm going to teach you a trick here to figure that out fast. So if I do weekday, and I type in, let's just use the date up here. Or actually, I wanted Christmas. So let's do Christmas. 12/25/2018. If you celebrate Hanukkah, you can do Hanukkah. You can do whatever day you want. All right. So I already changed my formatting, but it's Tuesday. So the way that I did that to get this format, because otherwise, if I do it down here, you can see 12/25/2018, but it gives me a 3. Well, as I was saying, the numbering starts on Sunday, and it goes all the way up through Saturday of the next week. But the issue here is 3 is not useful to me. If I didn't know that 3 was Tuesday and I hadn't told you that formatting, I needed to change this to give me the date that Google Sheets is trying to tell me. So, in order to do that, I go to my More Formats up here in the toolbar, and I go to More Formats, Custom Number Format. And you can actually do these for many, many different kinds of things. You can do it for dates, you can do it for currencies, any type of value label. There's tons of different patterns here that they already input for you. So if you want it like Monday, it's just DDDD. And I apply that, and it gives me Tuesday. So let's do New Year's. I think I've already changed this format as well. But if I do weekday, my date is 1/1/2020, whatever it is, and it gives me Wednesday. So that's why weekday can be useful. It's more for figuring out what day of the week these things are. If somebody is trying to figure out, was it a Wednesday? What is it? A Tuesday? When are the weekends this year? Weekday is going to be great for that. So if I go down to the bottom now, cell A62, I have a quick little exercise here. I'm going to introduce it, but what I want you to do is just pick a date. Do today, for all I care. And my today is November 2nd. So I want to figure out how to get to the end of the month. My due date is going to be the end of this month. So you can do end of next month, but what end of month does is it allows you to get the last day of any month. If you don't remember if it's a 31st month or a 28th month, it doesn't matter. End of month does it for you. So I pick my date over here, and I do 0. Because starting at 0 is the current month I'm in. If I do 1, it says the months is the number of months before or after start date to consider. So it's going to be the month after the start date that I'm considering, meaning 1 will give me December. But I have to do 0, that'll be the current month I'm in. And what I want you to do is figure out how many days are left, hours left, and how many minutes there are in all of this. All right, give it a shot. And in the next lecture, I'm going to solve this with you guys, and then I'm going to show you a cool calendar that I made that you guys can kind of look at as a future thing that will be really cool, that after you've learned all the knowledge in this course, you'll be able to make yourself. All right, great job, guys. See you in the next one. All right, everyone, welcome back. So in this exercise, there were a lot of really tricky things that I didn't actually provide you, and I know that was kind of a jerk move, but the reason I did that is to give you a lot of introduction into our next section, which is going to be rounding and randomizing. So you needed to actually round a lot in this exercise. You also needed to change this today to a now. That was another trick. This is a really tough one. I'm sorry I didn't give you guys context, but I wanted to see if you guys could figure it out. I'm sure you had a lot of questions. So let's start with subtracting our big month from our little month just to get days. And if you want, you could actually just do equals concatenate, and you could take this and say, you know, days left. And you could actually leave it at that, and that would be fine. So you have 28 days left. But I wanted to create a more comprehensive countdown clock. I wanted to make it really interesting. So you have days, hours, and minutes. It's a real countdown. So in order to do this, I'm going to go back up here and change this to now. And now I have a decimal format where I can actually get hours and minutes from it. So I have this 27.38, and it's a massive decimal, as you can tell. So I'm actually going to round this to the nearest integer, which is 0. So then I have 27 days left still. Now I need to get hours. So I do equals mod, which is what I'll teach you in the next one. But I do this by 1. It's basically saying, right, the number to be divided and the final remainder, and then the number to divide by. So if I divide this whole thing by 1, I'm going to get a 0.38 remainder. Then I want to convert this into hours, and there's how many hours in a day? 24. So I get 9.09. Then I want to change this again, and I want to mod this dividend by 1 and get 0.09 and multiply it by 60 because there's 60 minutes in an hour. Excellent. So I have all my different pieces of the clock now, and now I just need to put them in. And you can see I already rounded this. So if I copy and paste that and do 65, change this to hours left, then I do that again and do 66. My typing is abysmal. I also can't see the keyboard, so that's a big reason why. And here we are. I now have this really cool clock that is telling me it's 27 days left, 9 hours left, 5 minutes left. And it'll change as I go on. But let's take away the left. I don't know why I put that in there to start, to clean this up. It's an iterative process. And now I have 27 days, 9 hours, and 5 minutes. Great job. This is really cool that we actually were able to do this. And I'm going to add one more little piece here, which is commas. And now I have a countdown clock. And for added bonus, you can actually add a data validation to refresh your clock. So I change this to checkbox, reject input, whatever it is, and I add that in. And I'm going to move this and say refresh clock, because it won't refresh anyway. And now I can click this, and you can see my seconds are refreshing, my minutes are refreshing, and my countdown clock will refresh too. So every time I press this, it'll refresh my clock. Congratulations, guys. This was a really tough exercise. I don't know if you got it. If you did, huge kudos. If you didn't, honestly, zero worries. But in the next section, we're going to go over randomizing and rounding. Now you can see how useful it is in every day to be able to know how to mod things and how to randomize. So looking forward to it. See you in the next section. All right, everyone. So I wanted to show you a quick little synthesis before I move on to section 11, where I'm going to show you a calendar that I built. And I was inspired to create this because we used all these date functions, but I know the applications of them weren't that exciting. So what I did here was created a little calendar using today and today plus 1, so that cell plus 1, etc. all the way across. And then on this, I started on G2, right, plus 1. And I just continued to add a day until I had all these cells organized like a calendar. And then I have no agenda. But what I've done is created a formula here that uses a bunch of functions that you've already learned. So we have if error, we have join, we have filter, and the if error ends with no agenda. So you can see we have a lot of no agendas here. And if you want to try and reverse engineer this, feel free to go to this tab and look at what I did here. But what I'm essentially doing is looking at this things to do and adding dates. So let's say I have some dummy data here. Voila. And we have go to the dentist, go to the doctor, visit mom, visit dad, buy a grill, and Thanksgiving for November. And in these different areas, I added dates. And those dates, you can see, correspond to dates in the calendar. And so each cell here is looking at this range and filtering based on whether it exists in this area. So let's say I have two different things on the same day. So I have like visit sister or something like that, and I have 11/28, 2018. You can see it now has both of those different areas there. So that's the beauty of filter. I just thought this was cool, and I thought you might want to check it out. Feel free to experiment, play with this. I just wanted to show you that there are some really cool applications of date functions, and date functions can come in handy because as time goes on, this today will switch and you'll only have the month ahead of you, and then you can continue adding things to do here and they'll populate on your calendar. I know you probably all have a Google Calendar already, or you have, an Apple Calendar, Yahoo Calendar, whatever it is, but now you can make one yourself. How cool is that? Anyway, hope you enjoyed this. We're now officially done with section 10. I will see you in section 11. Great job. Get excited for randomizing and rounding.